World War I occurred between July 28, 1914 and November 11, 1918, and by the end of the war, over 20 million people had been killed. Why the war happened is a complicated question, and while there was a chain of events that directly led up to the Great War, the root of it runs deep and is quite complex. One thing that did significantly contribute to it was a dynamic system of alliances, and this episode will describe the diplomatic treaties that contributed to the start of World War I. As you can see from this video, the Great War was all about diplomacy at every step of the way. And if you want to be involved in high-level diplomacy of the era and immerse yourself into other aspects of the Great War, the sponsor of this video, Supremacy 1914, is a perfect game for you. In this free, online PvP strategy game, you lead a real country during World War I and fight against up to 500 other players in real-time games that can take weeks to complete. You can use countless different historically accurate army units across cavalry, tanks, planes, and infantry. The game has a strong diplomatic system, allowing you to declare war or forge alliances. You are in control, and we love the fact that every player can find their own strategy and decide the fate of epic battles and of the world. For us, the most interesting part of the game is the huge tech tree, with over 120 different units, as well as an in-depth economic system. You can play Supremacy 1914 both on PC and mobile, and the game has an exclusive gift for our viewers. Click on the link in the description and get 15,000 gold and 1 month of premium subscription for free. Offer only available for 30 days, so don't waste time. We've also created a special game for our viewers, details at the end of the video. To understand how important alliances were to the causation of World War I, we must first take a look at what made alliances so important. The balance of power theory in international relations suggests that states may secure their survival by preventing any one state from gaining enough military power to dominate all others. If one state becomes too strong, the theory predicts that other states will form a coalition to thwart its strength. This theory has been the fundamental basis for a large part of human history, most notably since the Peace of Westphalia that ended the 30 Years' War, and was crucial for the formation of the doctrine of the balance of power. For much of the 19th century, after the French Revolution and Napoleonic Wars, the major European powers tried to maintain a tenuous balance of power amongst themselves, which was known as the Concert of Europe. This system managed to localize conflicts, but faced a looming enemy: the rise of nationalism and revolutions. Alongside this, one of the major great powers, Britain, began a period known as the Splendid Isolation, in which its policy was to avoid permanent alliances. However, Britain did sign the Treaty of London on April 19, 1839, alongside most of the major powers of Europe. Under this treaty, the European powers recognized the guaranteed independence and neutrality of Belgium, which had recently broken off from the United Kingdom of the Netherlands. The first phase of the Concert of Europe would dissolve due to nationalism and revolutions during the mid-19th century. Simultaneously, alongside what was going on in Western Europe was the decline of the Ottoman Empire. This process of decline would kick off in 1789 and last until its collapse at the end of World War I. The Ottoman Empire faced numerous external and internal conflicts, particularly as a result of the rise of nationalism. Many territories within the Ottoman Empire began to find national consciousness, driven by imported Western European ideas. This led to parts of its empire breaking off through revolutions, creating a major power vacuum. Indeed, British statesman John Russell would go on in 1853, during the run-up to the Crimean War, to describe the ailing empire as the sick man of Europe. With nationalism and revolutions on the rise, one man would emerge to shake up Europe. In the midst of the Austro-Prussian War of 1866 was the gradual march towards unification of the German states, pushed heavily by Otto von Bismarck. This led to the Franco-Prussian War of 1870, in which France fought to restore its dominant position in continental Europe, and Prussia to establish a Prussian hegemony over the German states. The conflict ended with a French defeat and the unification of German states into the German Reich. This also caused a major long-term resentment between France and Germany, known as revanchism, specifically because of the loss of Alsace-Lorraine. Following German unification, Otto von Bismarck sought to revive the Concert of Europe to protect Germany's gains and secure its leading role in European affairs. The revitalized concert would include Austria-Hungary, France, Italy, Russia, Britain, and Germany, and this second phase would be a period of relative peace and stability, facilitating the growth of European colonial and imperial control over Africa and Asia. In order to usher in something similar to the Concert of Europe for a second time, Otto von Bismarck began to create a system of alliances to prevent or limit war. The first major alliance to emerge during this period was the Dual Alliance of October 7, 1879, a defensive alliance between Germany and Austria-Hungary, in which the two powers promised to support one another in the case of an attack by Russia. In 1878, the Russian Empire had defeated the Ottoman Empire in the Russo-Turkish War, resulting in Russia gaining considerable influence in the Balkans, and this situation threatened Austria-Hungary, who was the chief rival to Russia in the Balkan region. While the dual alliance served its purpose thwarting war with Russia, there still loomed the threat of France. Since the Franco-Prussian War, France sought to regain Alsace-Lorraine from Germany. Another nation that had concerns about France was Italy, who had recently become a rival to France over its colonial ambitions in Africa. Italy was furious when France seized Tunisia in 1881, which many Italians had considered a potential colony. Thus Otto von Bismarck formed the Triple Alliance in May 1882, an agreement between Germany, Austria-Hungary and Italy, stipulating that Germany and Austria-Hungary would assist Italy if it was attacked by France without provocation. In turn, Italy would assist them if they were attacked by France. Now Otto von Bismarck had secured Italy's support in the case of a war with France, but still sought further mechanisms to thwart war with its western neighbor. A secret agreement was created, known only to top officials in Berlin and St. Petersburg, known as the Reinsurance Treaty of 1887. The treaty provided that Germany and Russia would remain neutral if the other became involved in a war with a third great power, but that would not apply if Germany attacked France or if Russia attacked Austria-Hungary. Otto von Bismarck felt this was essential to prevent a Russo-French alliance, seeking to avoid any possibility of a two-front war against Germany. In 1888, Kaiser Wilhelm I died, leaving the throne to his son, Friedrich III. The new monarch suffered from cancer of the larynx and died 99 days later, being succeeded by his son Wilhelm II. Unfortunately for Bismarck, Wilhelm II's advisors pressured him to get rid of Bismarck, believing he would never become a great leader with such a dominant chancellor around. Bismarck was forced to resign on March 18, 1890, and was replaced by Leo von Caprivi. The Reinsurance Treaty highly depended on the prestige of Bismarck, and as a result was not renewed. Kaiser Wilhelm II, under the belief that his personal friendship with Tsar Alexander III would suffice to ensure further genial diplomatic ties, decided to place higher priority on building a relationship with Britain. This led Germany to invite Britain to the Triple Alliance, which was unsuccessful as Britain was still implementing its splendid isolation policy. Yet the rumor of Britain possibly joining the Triple Alliance concerned Russia, who began talks with France. The result was the Franco-Russian Alliance of 1891, an agreement that provided mutual military aid in the event of a German attack. Thus now there were two hostile blocs in Europe. The Franco-Russian Alliance was not merely a military agreement. Both nations aided each other financially and with foreign policy. France, relying on its Russian support, intensified its colonial interests during the scramble for Africa. At its climax came the Fashoda Incident of 1898, which pushed France further into strengthening its alliance with Russia, but also acknowledged its need to form closer ties with Britain. Likewise, France supported Russia's expansion into Manchuria in the 1890s, sending loans to Russia and making it financially dependent on France. Britain, by the turn of the 20th century, finally shook off its isolation policy, as Russian expansion into Manchuria threatened both Britain and Japan's interests in East Asia. Thus, the Anglo-Japanese alliance was signed in January of 1902. The agreement meant Britain and Japan would safeguard both their interests if threatened by an aggressive action of any other power. In 1904, events were unfolding between Japan and Russia that would eventually erupt into the Russo-Japanese War. Both Britain and France realized the situation that could emerge, as both had alliances with the respective nations. Both nations also came into the 20th century feeling isolated and threatened by an ever-growing aggressive Germany. This led them into talks to avoid going to war with each other, and they reached an agreement that ended almost 1,000 years of intermittent conflict. The Entente Cordiale was signed on April 8, 1904, and was made up of a series of agreements over colonial disputes in Africa and Asia. Both nations were now not isolated in Europe, and this upset the diplomacy of Germany, whose policies had long relied on the Franco-British antagonism. This also meant that neither Britain nor France would be taking an active role in the Russo-Japanese War of 1904 to 1905. Yet the Entente Cordiale was not a mutual defense, and so either nation was still able to form its own foreign policies unhindered. After the humiliating loss during the Russo-Japanese War, followed by the Russian Revolution of 1905, Russia found itself in a very shaky position. This resulted in the Anglo-Russian Entente being signed on August 31, 1907, and it resolved disputes in the Middle East between them, much like the Entente Cordiale did for Franco-British disputes in Africa and Asia. Yet again, this was not a mutual defense agreement. The two agreements became known as the Triple Entente, and are often compared to the Triple Alliance. However, despite similarities, it is important to note the Triple Entente was not an alliance of mutual defense, and thus Britain was not held by it militarily. Only France and Russia were, because of the Franco-Russian alliance of 1894. The Triple Entente was not conceived as a counterweight to the Triple Alliance, but as a method of securing imperial security between the three powers. Yet the impact of the Triple Entente was twofold. It improved relations between Britain and France and its ally Russia, and it showcased how important good relations with Britain would be for Germany. Unfortunately for Britain and Germany, they fell into an arms race based on a plan made by Admiral Alfred von Tirpitz in 1897, who thought to create a fleet in being to force British diplomatic concessions. Tirpitz believed if Germany possessed a navy that Britain could not destroy without imperiling herself, then Britain would be forced to negotiate with Germany, give up her splendid isolation policy, and join the Triple Alliance. This would never become a reality, and further isolated Germany from Britain. On June 28, 1914, Gavrilo Princip, one of 6 assassins from the Black Hand secret society, assassinated Archduke Franz Ferdinand and his wife, Sophie Duchess of Hohenberg, in Sarajevo. The assassination sent shockwaves throughout the Austro-Hungarian Empire, and after a quick investigation, they found out leading members of the assassination squad had conspired in Belgrade and that Serbia had directly or indirectly supported them. A large debate raged between the elites of the empire, but by June 30th, Austro-Hungarian Foreign Minister Count Leopold Berchtold and Emperor Franz Josef agreed that the policy of patience with Serbia had to end, and a firm line was to be taken. Many elites in the German military, particularly Helmut von Moltke, repeatedly argued that a preventative war with Serbia's defender Russia was necessary as soon as possible in 1914, rather than in 1917, when the Russian Great Military Program would be finished and Germany would be unable to risk a war. Austria-Hungary sent diplomat Alexander Count of Hoyos to Berlin to assert their attitudes on July 5th. Emperor Wilhelm II, pushed by the German General Staff, declared it would support Austria-Hungary unconditionally against Serbia, but the sooner the better. Many elites in Germany, including Wilhelm II, believed that an armed conflict between Austria-Hungary and Serbia would end up being purely local. A quick war would get rid of Serbia, lead to further diplomatic gains with Bulgaria and Romania, and lessen Russia's influence in the Balkans. However, nothing quick occurred. Austria-Hungary was very slow to act publicly, and only delivered an ultimatum to Serbia on July 23rd, almost 3 weeks after the assassination. Austria-Hungary had lost international sympathies, and now looked like it was simply using the assassination as pretext for aggression. Serbia was given a 48-hour deadline to comply, but after being pushed by Russia to not accept the ultimatum, responded to the ultimatum with a less than full acceptance. Austria-Hungary broke off diplomatic relations following this, leading Serbia to mobilize for war, as they expected Austria-Hungary to declare war the next day. On July 25th, Emperor Franz Joseph ordered the mobilization of Austria-Hungary and to begin operations against Serbia on July 28th. On the same day, Russia, seeking to deter Austria-Hungary, ordered a secret partial mobilization of its forces against them. On July 28th at 11 AM, Austria-Hungary declared war on Serbia, and at 1 AM on July 29th, the first shots of World War I were fired from the Austrian monitor SMS Bodrog at Belgrade. Simultaneously, Germany's Chancellor was informed that their war plan, the Schlieffen Plan, will require going through Belgium, and thus securing Britain's neutrality was of critical importance. On July 30th, Russia officially announced a general mobilization against Austria-Hungary, prompting Germany to declare general mobilization the next day, which prompted France to also start mobilization. On the 1st of August 1914, Germany officially declared war on Russia while simultaneously invading Luxembourg. The next day, Germany signed a secret treaty with the Ottoman Empire, forming the Ottoman-German alliance. Germany also gave Belgium an ultimatum, demanding free passage through their borders in order to invade France. Belgium refused to allow Germany to violate its country's neutrality. On August 3rd, Germany officially declared war on France and on Belgium on August 4th. Germany initiated the Schlieffen Plan and invaded Belgium on August 4th, and at midnight, Britain declared war on Germany, much to their shock. On August 6th, Austria-Hungary declared war on Russia, and on August 23rd, Japan declared war on Germany and on Austria-Hungary on August 25th. Italy had secretly signed a pact in 1902 with France, agreeing to remain neutral if Germany attacked, and thus did not participate at the outbreak of the war. Italy would play both the Central Powers and Entente until April of 1915, when Italy joined the Entente and declared war on Austria-Hungary May 23rd. The alliances failed to keep the peace in 1914, and in combination with the military perception of security that had emerged among many decision-makers, actively played a role in bringing about a world war. The original purpose of these alliances were to extend Europe's long peace, but in effect, they simply made it easier for a longer war to occur. Once again, thanks to Supremacy 1914 for sponsoring this video. This is a free online PvP strategy game set during World War I with historically accurate units and epic combat. Download the game via our link in the description to get 15,000 gold and 1 month of premium subscription for free. Offer only available for 30 days, so don't waste time. We've set up a special game for our viewers, and you can join it by entering the game ID Kings and Generals and password Kings and Generals. See you on the battlefield. More videos on the history of the Great War are on the way, so make sure you are subscribed and have pressed the bell button to see them. Please consider liking, commenting and sharing, it helps immensely. Our videos would be impossible without our kind patrons and YouTube channel members. whose ranks you can join via the links in the description to know our schedule, get early access to our videos, access our Discord, and much more. This is the Kings and Generals channel, and we will catch you on the next one.